All right, let's just jump right in. We have all had that moment, right? You're at a crowded concert, a big protest, maybe even a sudden emergency, and you look down at your phone, your lifeline, and there's just no service. The network is totally jammed. So what if your phone could work without the internet? Today, we're going to explore the amazing promise, but also the very real dangers of these internet-free messaging apps. This right here, this is a quote from a user on Reddit, and wow, it just captures the whole problem perfectly. In a moment of absolute chaos, when you need to communicate more than ever, our entire infrastructure can just fail. The very systems we count on to get info and check on our people can buckle, leaving us completely in the dark. It is a modern-day nightmare, isn't it? You get thousands of people all in one place, all trying to hit the network at the same time, and the cell towers just get slammed. They can't handle it. Doesn't matter if it's a natural disaster or just a huge festival, when you need it most, your connection can literally just evaporate. Now, this is the question that tech folks have been trying to answer for years. What if our phones didn't need to ping some central tower way off in the distance? What if they could just talk directly to each other? And that leads us to a really fascinating technology. So let's talk about mesh networking. It's a pretty radical idea that completely flips the script on how we think about mobile communication. Instead of a top-down system controlled by big companies, it builds a network from the ground up, using the very phones we're all carrying around. So in a mesh network, your phone basically becomes a part of the network itself. It uses stuff like Bluetooth or Wi-Fi to link up directly with other phones nearby. So your message hops from your phone to your friend's phone to maybe a stranger's phone next to them, and on and on. It's like a digital bucket brigade, extending the range way beyond a single Bluetooth connection. It's a totally decentralized peer-to-peer web. This diagram here gives you a peek under the hood. So you see those things labeled STA? Those are just individual devices, like your phone. They connect to each other or to other devices that act as mesh APs. The information just weaves its way through this web, and if one connection gets blocked, no big deal, it just finds another route. A device can even act as a gateway, a mesh portal, to hook the whole local group up to the wider internet if a signal pops up. The difference here is, well, it's huge. Traditional networks are centralized. They depend on all this expensive infrastructure. They're what we use every day, for sure, but they have these single points of failure. Mesh networks, on the other hand, are decentralized, they're spontaneous, and they don't need any of that infrastructure. Their power comes from how many users are around, not from some giant tower. So this dream, this vision of a truly independent, user-powered network, well, it's what led to a ton of excitement around one app that promised to make it real for everybody. Bitchat. Yeah, when the guy who founded Twitter throws his support behind a new messaging app, you know people are going to pay attention. Bitchat launched with a massive amount of hype. It was billed as this revolutionary tool for private, off-the-grid communication that could resist censorship and network blackouts. And you just got to look at the features list. I mean, it reads like a privacy lover's dream. No accounts, so true anonymity. End-to-end encryption for security. And get this. In emergency panic mode, you triple tap the logo and poof, all your data is wiped. That's a feature clearly made for very high-stakes situations, like for activists or journalists. And at first, people were blown away. The idea of sending a message while your phone is in airplane mode, it felt like actual magic. It really seems like Bitchat had cracked the code, that they delivered on this dream of a simple, secure, and truly independent way to talk. But, as it turns out, that dream had a pretty dark side. Because just as fast as all that hype built up, the red flags started popping up. The very things that made Bitchat seem so amazing were also hiding some really critical weaknesses. And this is the wildest part. This warning isn't from some competitor or some online critic. No, this disclaimer was posted by the Bitchat developers themselves on their own GitHub page. Think about that. They launched an app for sensitive situations while openly admitting it hadn't been checked for security holes and shouldn't be used for sensitive situations. And researchers pretty quickly figured out why that warning was there. One of the scariest flaws they found was with identity. An attacker on the same mesh network could basically grab your public key and hijack your identity. They could send messages as you to your friends. For an app that is built entirely on trust, that is a catastrophic failure. So let's just break this down. The promise was secure private chats. The nightmare reality? Attackers can impersonate you. The promise was end-to-end encryption. The reality? It lacked something called forward secrecy, which means if an attacker ever got your key, they could possibly read all of your past messages. And other flaws, like buffer overflows, might even let an attacker get into your phone's memory. The whole dream was turning into a security nightmare fast. And what's so wild is we have seen this movie before. Way back in 2014, an app called FireChat got all this buzz for being used in protests, but it faded away because its security was weak and got exploited. Now, a decade later, Bitchat comes along with the same exact hype and falls into the same exact traps. It shows this pattern of pushing a cool idea before making sure it's actually secure. So, where does all this leave us? Are these apps some revolutionary tool for freedom, or are they a dangerous trap for the very people who need them most? Well, like most things, the answer is it's complicated. Look, here's the main takeaway. The idea behind these apps is powerful, and it's really important, especially in a world with more and more surveillance and network control. But the technology, at least in these apps you can download today, is just not there yet. It's experimental, and using it without knowing the risks can be super dangerous. So before you rush off and download the next cool mesh app you hear about, just ask yourself 3 simple questions. First, is it even going to work? Remember, these apps need a bunch of other users nearby to pass the message along. Second, what's your personal risk level? If you're a journalist or an activist, using an unaudited app is just a bad idea. And third, what are you using it for? Just chatting at a music festival is one thing. Trying to coordinate in a real crisis, that's a whole different ballgame. And just when you think it couldn't get more complex, there's this. Research points out a hidden challenge you'd probably never even think about. Battery life. Yeah, a phone's battery level can affect how the whole network performs. A network full of phones on low battery is an unreliable network. The challenge of just managing these mobile systems is absolutely immense, which leaves us with one last big question to think about. We know the need for this kind of independent communication is real. But if the big tech giants won't build it, and the small independent developers are struggling to build it securely, then who will? Is it up to us, the users, to build and maintain our own digital lifelines? That's a question we're all going to have to answer as we try to navigate this increasingly connected and disconnected world.